Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, I'm your host, Mrs. M. And if you haven't, make sure you click the link below. That way you can subscribe to my channel and not miss out on anything you need to scale your business to 6 figures and beyond. How? So in this video, I am going to talk about the middleman method, a couple of tips that I actually use that work really, really well for me. The first thing is vetting them. I get a lot of people that call or ask, or in my courses, they may ask, how do you vet someone to do the middleman? So what is the middleman exactly? It's where I find a contract. If it's a federal contract, then I do not have to be registered with that state. If it's a state-to-state contract, I do need to be registered with that state. So let's go for this illustration, specifically looking for federal contracts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, of course, know what NAICS codes I want to use, and I'm going to make sure that I have them all ready, and I'm not going to use more than 3. I always say in the beginning, if you haven't made over at least 10 to 15K a month, then you want to stick with something until you become an expert at it. No one wants you to be a general. They want you to be an expert. So we don't want to use just like when we go to the doctor, we don't want a doctor that's, we need someone that's specializing in something. So that's what we want to focus on. We want to become specialists. We want to be experts in our particular NAICS codes that we're looking to work with. Now, if you do not have the expertise, you can allow someone that's going to sub the person that's going to actually provide the labor, you being the person that's going to have the contract, the prime contractor, and you're looking to leverage their experience, their past performance directly on your CAPE statement. Absolutely, you can do that because you're going to utilize their skill set to help you perform the services. It happens all day, every day. All the time, you'll see a lot of companies that do projects. They're not saying that they have employees that do that, but they may have a company that they leverage that can do the exact thing they're looking for, let's say, the Department of Justice or Department of Transportation. So one of the things that I actually use the middleman for, I found a contract for snow removal, which is one of my biggest money makers under the 561210 Facility Support Services, one of my favorites. And I actually had that landscaper who did snow removal as well. I used his equipment, his expertise to make sure that we got the job done. I didn't own any of the equipment, had no knowledge in the actual snow removal, but I did do a little research so I could make sure that when I crafted, the second part of my tip to you is crafting the exact contract that you want to make sure. One of the things I did, because I really didn't have the money, was I made sure that I looked to see when I won the contract. Now, this particular contract I had already won, and I needed someone to do the work. Sometimes I would find the individuals before I won the contract because I wanted to have enough time to build the relationship with them, ask the questions, locate them in the dynamic small business search. That's where I go, and I'm able to find so many really great contractors in that particular on that particular website, which is dsps.spa.gov, one of my favorite ones. So once I've located the particular person that's going to perform the services, I'm in the middle, they're the sub, I'm the prime, and let's say our end user is the facility, let's say Department of Transportation or Energy, DOE, or something like that. Now, what did I do next? So the next thing I wanted to do is make sure I really had my contract. So contracts are important when you're doing the middleman as well. Very important, because how well they perform the work is going to reflect directly on your company. You're the one that has the contract, not them. So you have a lot of skin in the game, and you want to make sure that you dot all your I's and cross all your T's when you're doing this. So the next thing I did was made sure that I could pay them. So once I knew what my contract was going to read with the government, I made sure that it corresponded with when I was going to pay them. I made sure that I had my money and I had enough time when I drafted the contract to my subcontractor. I made sure that I wrote enough time in there where I could have enough of a float where I wasn't so pressed when it came to delivering what I need to deliver. The other thing is you can even put in there that once you get paid, you will then pay them. Now, when I did that, I did add a little bit more of an incentive by giving them a higher percentage of the contract. The way I got my pricing was simple. I simply asked them, I took my statement of work, scope of work, depending on what the contract is. I copied and pasted so they didn't get all the particular information. They then sent me their price. I would get 3 potential subcontractors. I do a Zoom meeting with them, and I have a set of questions I was ready to ask. I always would go to their DSBS profile because in there, I could look at their past performances right there. What were they saying? And a lot of times, if they're good, they will even give you the number of the people that they did the work for. I like that. That was a part of my vetting. Number 1, they had to have a professional email address. I didn't look for anyone that had a Yahoo or Gmail or anything like that. I wanted a professional email address for someone that was going to work with me. Number 2, I wanted to make sure they had their capability statement on their DSBS profile. Number 3, I looked to see if they had past performances, and then I would call the past performances to extra vet to make sure who was coming to represent my company was doing a really great job. And once I do all that, I do the Zoom. I have questions that I was going to ask via Zoom. The interview might take 5, 6, 7 minutes. If that checked off, then if I already have the contract, I would, look at maybe 3 of these individuals, and I knew they were going to be a great fit. When I was doing my contract, I, of course, would do the non-compete. I would make sure to do the confidentiality so that they would, certain things were confidential that we would share. I made sure that I put in there a termination clause. I made sure I put in there that if we got terminated from the contract, what would happen, what the results would be if they, did certain things, like if they were to not show up, this is what the consequences are. So I would spell it out so that way we both were on the same page. But the most important thing that I did and I learned was to make sure that I put it in a certain schedule of when they need to send the invoice to me, when I knew I was sending it into the government agency, because sometimes, especially in the beginning, it can take a while before you're actually paid. Once I was able to do 3 of them and get back the pricing, I would simply then, especially if it was a quote, and I know a lot of times the quotes were for the lowest technically, accepted type of contract. Lowest price technically accepted is the actual term for it. Then I knew that I wanted to just look and focus on the price. But sometimes you might have a service where they're looking for you to provide resumes. So there are a lot of things you want to do and get ready before you find the contract. That way you can make sure that the person you're vetting can send all that into you so that you can make sure that you have it all ready to send in for your quote or your proposal. Then the last part was the pricing. I would ask them to price the scope of work. I would then get 3, and sometimes 2 would be close, 1 be way out there, or they may all be pretty closely, priced similar. And then I would take the one that I felt was going to be the best in all the areas, not just the price. And then I would add my percentage. So I get questions on how much would I normally add? Well, that depended on 2 things. If I already knew what someone was going to pay me, there are times that I had contracting officers call me directly because I'd had a pretty good past performance. They call me directly and they would then tell me how much they were going to charge for this particular project. So I knew what I was going to get paid. And so then I would ask them to give me either do a walkthrough or give me their pricing, and I would add a percentage. No less than 20% and normally no more than 30%. That's what I would add on to my bid. So I'd add it directly in, look at the equipment, supplies, everything that was required, add that price in there, and that is how I would submit the bid. And once I won the bid for this large landscaping, I was so excited and they worked out just beautifully. So it is a process. Make sure you have your contract from top to bottom, termination clauses in there, non-compete, how they have to communicate with you. All of that needs to be spelled in there. And sometimes you can go to like a legal aid, which I did in the beginning because I couldn't afford an attorney, and have them look over it. A lot of times it's like $50 for an hour or maybe $45 for 30 minutes, but it's so worth it. So look in your state for like legal aid, not legal Zoom, but some legal aids. And a lot of times they will be able to help you with doing contracts where it may be too expensive for you to use a regular attorney. But I highly recommend you having someone looking over yours in the beginning before you start. And then once I put the price on there, we won. I also made sure I covered, just in case we might won more than a couple of years. Most time you have like a couple of options, the base year, and then several options. we would be able to go through effortlessly, because in all my contracts, I would put, if we were to win, factor in inflation, do all that, so it just goes effortlessly from one year to the next. So these are the things I did, and it was so great to leverage someone else's experience to win a contract and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. So hopefully this worked well for you. This is a method I highly recommend, but just be very careful because there's a lot of crooks and turns in there. So until next time, if you'd like to learn more, then make sure you come to my free GovCon Lunch and Learn every Wednesday, 12 noon. Click the link. This week, we're going to talk specifically about the middleman. I'm going to share with you a lot more tips and ways to find contracts where the middleman method works just great. So I look forward to seeing you. Until next time, be safe and take care. Bye-bye.